Putin tells Snowden to stop leaking US secrets if he wants asylum. Egypt's president rejects an army ultimatum to resolve differences. And a Nepalese boy trapped in a culvert after a fight with other youngsters.
Good evening. In a surprising revelation today, Russia's President Vladimir Putin went to bat for the United States. He told intelligence whistleblower Edward Snowden Russia will grant him asylum as long as he stops leaking American secrets. Terms Snowden cannot abide by, causing him to cancel his bid for asylum in Russia. But he does have a dozen other asylum requests out there, including one made to China. The United States may not realize it, but when it comes to meddlesome Edward Snowden, they've just cashed in a big fat chip with Russia. While they don't have Snowden's head on a platter via arresting him and trying him for espionage, they do have Russia helping them to muzzle the whistleblower. In a deal only Vladimir Putin can pull off to his advantage, the Russian leader said if Snowden wants asylum in his country, he needs to stop harming U.S. interests.
If he wants to go anywhere and someone will accept him, he is welcome. If he wishes to stay here, then we have one condition. He must stop his work aimed at harming our American partners.
In an off-color remark, Putin also questioned Snowden's human rights excuse for leaking U.S. secrets.
Although it sounds very strange coming from me, he positions himself as a fighter for human rights, and he's not going to stop this activity.
Treating Putin's announcement like a slap in the face, Snowden immediately yanked his asylum bid in Russia. With his U.S. passport null and void and still holed up in a transit zone in a Moscow airport, Snowden has some serious thinking to do. Ecuador's President Rafael Correa reiterated they can't even consider granting him asylum until he reaches Ecuadorian soil. But Venezuela's president said protecting Snowden would be an honor. Nicolas Maduro called Snowden a champion for speaking the truth and deconstructing a world controlled by an imperialist American elite. This former French spy maintains U.S. surveillance is no surprise, saying every country does it.
Certainly Germany and France, for instance, and certainly France are spying the United States when they can.
But the latest news at the U.S. tapped European Union offices has Germany and France fuming mad.
Clarity and transparency is what we expect from our partners and allies.
And if it turned out to be true, then it would be unacceptable. We're no longer in the Cold War.
While Snowden cries foul that the U.S. has made him a stateless man, WikiLeaks confirms he has asylum bids in a dozen different countries. While visiting Tanzania yesterday, U.S. President Barack Obama had one simple answer to European outrage over new allegations that his country spies on its allies. He said the Europeans do it too. The European Union is demanding the United States explain if Washington was spying on the bloc, and if it's true, such surveillance is shocking. But Obama maintains every country does it in the name of intelligence gathering. He went on to assure his allies the U.S. will address their concerns.
Every intelligence service, not just ours, but every European intelligence service, every Asian intelligence service, wherever there's an intelligence service, here's one thing that they're going to be doing. They're going to be trying to understand the world better and what's going on in world capitals around the world.
In other international news, Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi has rejected an army ultimatum that calls on the country's feuding politicians to agree on an inclusive roadmap for the country's future. Morsi said he would pursue his own plans for national reconciliation. Alan Buckner reports.
The dramatic military broadcast came after millions of people across Egypt took to the streets Sunday demanding that Morsi step down.
إن القوات المسلحة تعيد.
General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the head of Egypt's armed forces, gave the country's political leaders 48 hours to come up with an agreement on the road forward. He did not say what the army might do if there's no agreement. Military helicopters trailing Egypt's flag circled over Cairo following the announcement. Thousands gathered outside the presidential palace, celebrating the armed forces' ultimatum. One of the opposition leaders, Ammar Moussa, a former presidential candidate, welcomed the army's declaration.
The call has to be issued to all Egyptians. Now there is a window of opportunity has been opened by the army, and under its aegis, we need to do that. We need to use all our political forces and our logic to try to get Egypt out of this very, very serious situation.
Supporters of Morsi used the word coup to describe the military maneuver. Morsi issued a statement saying the presidency would move forward on its own path. U.S. President Barack Obama, who's in Africa on a three-nation tour, spoke on the phone with Morsi, urging cooperation.
There's more work to be done to create the conditions in which everybody feels that their voices are heard and that the government is responsive and truly representative. And so what we've encouraged the government to do is to reach out to the opposition and work through these issues in a political process.
The Army's ultimatum has raised concerns over a military takeover similar to the one in 2011 after the ouster of autocrat Hosni Mubarak. Alan Buknia, TVB News.
Some local news now, and a 6-year-old Nepalese boy is in hospital recovering after he was rescued from a culvert in Yamate late last night. He was reported missing on Sunday morning. Police arrested his mother and her boyfriend for suspected child neglect, as well as 2 boys who are suspected to have abused and abducted him. Trevor Lee reports.
Police officers continued searching the scene for evidence today after they found the boy in a culvert near Chengping Street around 11 last night. Assistant Divisional Commander Zhang Yuwo said the boy was heard calling for help and found trapped under a drainage cover in the culvert. The police officer said the concrete lead was about the same size as the 6-year-old boy and believes it was simply too heavy for him to move. There's a highway between the culvert and the closest residence, and where the boy was trapped is quite hidden under the grass here. The boy was rushed to hospital with wounds on his arms and legs and severe dehydration, but is now in a stable condition. Police said the boy was taken to the Sai Kung Street playground by his mother and her boyfriend on Saturday night. It's believed the 2 adults left afterwards, before an argument broke out between the boy and another boy. Police investigations show the other boy brought 2 others into the fight, and the 3 took the 6-year-old to Chengping Street, where he was pushed into the culvert. Police arrested 2 boys aged 8 and 14 respectively, and are still hunting down a 10-year-old boy. The victim's mother and her boyfriend were also arrested on suspicion of child neglect, but have now been released on bail. Trevor Lee, TVB News.
A coroner's inquest has ruled that a fire which left 4 people dead in an old building near To Kwa Wan 2 years ago was accidental. But the coroner criticised the Fire Services Department for failing to work out what caused the blaze, and he questioned whether the department's investigators were up to the job. Rani Samtani reports.
The inquest into a fire which left 4 people dead in a building along Matawai Road 2 years ago ended today, with the coroner's court concluding the blaze was most likely started by a leftover cigarette, incense or candles. Coroner Michael Chan noted that evidence presented by the buildings and electrical and mechanical services departments proved that the fire was not the result of a power failure. The fire started in a storeroom in a subdivided flat on the ground floor. Smoke rose along the staircase, but residents from other flats that were able to escape only sustained minor burns. The coroner criticized the Fire Services Department for failing to identify the cause of the fire. Chan cited a number of instances in which the department cited, "Cause of the fire is unknown." As a result, Chan questioned the competency of the department's investigators. After questioning department investigators further, Chan believes they had just copied the government laboratory investigation report. The fire broke out at 3 a.m. on June 15, 2011, and left a mother, her 2 children, and an 18-year-old girl dead. The coroner called on the government to improve conditions of old residential buildings so as to prevent future accidents. As of today, there are still a number of subdivided flats in the building where the fire took place. Last year, notices were placed in the building telling residents to remove rubbish and belongings from the staircase. But rubbish could still be found along the staircases today. The ground floor storeroom where the blaze started has been enclosed with concrete. Residents say after the fire, all doors were replaced with fireproof doors. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
And still ahead in our newscast, a LegCo committee approves Tuen Mun and Taku Ling landfill expansion plans. India launches its first navigational satellite, and a paper lantern thought to have sparked the largest fire in Birmingham for years.
And we're back tonight with more local news. Lawmakers on a LegCo committee have approved government plans to extend landfills in North District and Tuen Mun. And the Environment Chief promised to form a new committee to support the recycling industry to lessen the burden of these landfills. Rachel Lung reports.
After a last-minute withdrawal of the Cheung Kwan O landfill expansion plan, the government got more support from lawmakers in LegCo today. As an olive branch, Secretary for the Environment Wong Kam Sing started off today's Public Works Subcommittee meeting by promising to set up a new committee to better develop the city's recycling system.
So that departments can work together to promote the long-term development of the recycling industries and to create the so-called green-collar jobs.
The new committee will be chaired by Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam and will also consider ways to provide subsidies for the recycling industry. Under the support of pro-government lawmakers, the proposal to expand the Tuen Mun and Taku Ling landfills were passed by the Public Works panel. But before the projects can go ahead, the $7 billion expansion of Taku Ling and $35 million for the Tuen Mun landfill still has to gain the approval from the Finance Committee next week. Wong said he will continue to lobby for the support of residents living near the Cheung Kwan O landfill for its expansion.
We have a letter to the Cheung Kwan O residents clearly listing out our timetable to address those key concerns, in particular the odor concern, the traffic concern, and also the air quality concerns. So we have already set out a very clear timetable and action plan to respond to the local improvements.
In late June, the government pledged a range of measures to appease residents near landfills, including $10 million to refit rubbish trucks with sealed containers to solve problems of odor and leakage. Rachel Lung, TVB News.
Organizers of yesterday's July 1st rally are criticizing the police for preventing demonstrators from joining the march at a busy corner along the route in Causeway Bay. But the police watchdog says the measures taken to control the crowd were reasonable. Etienne Lammy-Smith reports.
The Civil Human Rights Front is blaming the police for these scuffles near the junction of Hennessy Road and East Point Road. Daisy Chan of the group said the protesters asked for permission from the police to join the march midway, but they took too long to respond, so the demonstrators tried to break through the barriers. She said in future the police should open all 6 lanes of Hennessy Road and that the organizers are not opposed to people joining their marches along the way. The police chief defended his officers and blamed the protesters for the scuffles.
It is really regretful that a number of demonstrators completely ignore police advice, charge against police cordons, pushing all this mulch barrier onto the ground and running onto a thoroughfare when traffic were still running. They not only endanger their own safety, their very act endanger the safety of other members of the public, including drivers and whoever is driving on those vehicles, as well as police officers on duty.
Tang denied the rally organizers' claim that the police had agreed to open up more of the road. The Independent Police Complaints Council said the police actions were reasonable. Secretary General of the Council, Ricky Chu, said protesters were warned not to join the rally at that location. Police say the rally organizers agreed beforehand to them beefing up crowd control at particularly busy areas along the route. They say this happened at the planning stage long before the march took place. Meanwhile, Chief Executive Lun Chenying responded to the demands made at the rally. He said once again his administration has been working hard over the past year and that it will continue to address livelihood issues and constitutional reform. Unsatisfied with the administration's hard work, a group of protesters started a rolling hunger strike last night, demanding Lun Chenying's resignation. Members of the Anti-CY Alliance, which include 3 pro-democratic lawmakers, say they will relay each other with 50-hour hunger strikes over the next 12 days. Etienne Lamy-Smith, TVB News.
Well, there are hugely different estimates in the number of protesters who actually took part in yesterday's rally. As Diane To reports, that's led one local academic to question the way organisers come up with their numbers.
Same rally, different numbers. Police say yesterday's rally drew 66,000 protesters, but the Civil Human Rights Front claims there were 430,000. Who is the public to trust when facing such discrepancy? Professor Paul Yip at Hong Kong University says he's disturbed by the increasing difference in numbers observed in recent years. As a third party, Yip and his headcount team estimated that 103,000 people took to the streets yesterday.
I think for the police figures, I think they also do the spot counting, but they fail to capture those people that have joined the march, I think, between the 2 points. I think for the organizers, I think it would be better for you to ask them how did they come up with the numbers.
Yip's team set up inspection points in Causeway Bay and Admiralty to count the number of passers-by. They then did a street survey to estimate the numbers of those who joined halfway through. Yip says if the police had included protesters who joined midway, they would have come up with similar numbers. He says the discrepancy of numbers reflects the polarization of viewpoints in society and stresses the importance of estimations which are scientifically verifiable. According to the professor, if the organizers' estimate is accurate, there would have been 2,000 people passing a certain point every minute. Diane To, TVB News.
Well, Donald Tsang's personal assistant has explained why the former chief executive was absent from yesterday's ceremony, marking the 16th anniversary of Hong Kong's return to Chinese rule. Tsang's assistant said the former CE has been out of town since late June. Tsang had informed the Home Affairs Department before leaving that he was unable to attend this year's handover anniversary celebrations.
India successfully launched its first navigational satellite to provide terrestrial, aerial, and marine services from a space station. The 44-meter-tall Polar satellite launch vehicle blasted off from Andhra Pradesh state. The 4-stage rocket sent the satellite into orbit. The satellite, which has a lifespan of about 10 years, will also help in disaster management. It constitutes the Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System that is similar to the Global Positioning System, or GPS, used by the U.S. and other countries. A fleet of Chinese naval vessels sailed out of Qingdao port today, heading for the Sea of Japan, according to state media. The 4 destroyers, 2 escort vessels, and a supply ship will have joint exercises with the Russian Navy. They represent the largest number of vessels the Chinese Navy has ever sent to take part in military drills with a foreign country. A total of 18 vessels, 1 submarine, and helicopters and fixed-wing planes will all take part in the exercises set to begin on Friday. The 8-day maneuvers will focus on joint maritime and air defense, joint escorts, and marine search and rescue operations. A simple Chinese-style paper lantern is thought to have caused a massive fire at a recycling center near Birmingham in England. Tens of thousands of tons of recycling material went up in flames in Smethwick late on Sunday, causing £6 million worth of damage. It was one of the largest fires in the region in recent years. Surveillance camera footage captured a Chinese lantern landing onto the plant site and then starting that fire that was at times being tackled by more than 200 firefighters. Local media is reporting 11 firefighters were injured, but none of them critically. All right, Tony, over to you for a look at today's sports.
That's right. We got tennis and a big shock, a big upset to talk about, actually.
Okay.
I was watching the match last night, and spectators in the bar were like, they let out a gasp that they couldn't actually quite believe it. And that's because that big name who did crash out in the quarterfinals was defending champion Serena Williams, who lost by 2-1. Her defeat means there's all to play for in the women's draw.
Serena Williams had been on such a roll at Wimbledon that it seemed unthinkable she would be troubled in the fourth round. But her quest to defend her crown at the All England club shuddered to a halt as she was beaten by a determined Sabine Lisicki. The German kept her composure despite a fight back from Serena to reach the quarterfinals with a 6-2, 1-6, 6-4 victory. Williams admitted she didn't play as well as she could and congratulated Lisicki.
I think that I didn't play the big points good enough. I didn't do what I do best. Sabine played really well as well. I mean, she always plays really well at Wimbledon, so I knew going in it would be a tough match.
Lisicki's opponent in the last 8 will be Estonia's Kaia Kanepi, who dashed the hopes of British tennis fans rooting for Laura Robson. Robson was aiming to become the first British woman in 29 years to reach the Wimbledon quarterfinals, but lost in straight sets.
You know, I thought she played a very solid match, and she can hit the ball incredibly hard off the ground, so it was tough for me to stay in the rallies, but, you know, I had my chances here and there and I just didn't take them.
But home fans still have Andy Murray to cheer on. The number 2 seed maintained his record of not dropping a set so far this tournament to beat Mikhail Yuzny 6-4, 7-6, 6-1. Murray's probable opponent in the final, Novak Djokovic, also won his match by 3-0 against Tommy Haas. And also through to the last 8 is Juan Martín del Potro, who beat Andres Seppi and faces David Ferrer in the quarters.
Well, on to Major League Baseball now, and Bryce Harper hit a home run on his first swing since coming back from injury as the Washington Nationals soundly beat the Milwaukee Brewers. His Nationals teammates quickly joined in the rout. The Nationals scored 5 runs in the third inning to extend their lead to 6-0. And they eventually beat the Brewers 10-5 to pull within 6 games of the Atlanta Braves at the top of the National League East.
And that is one solid wrap of our news. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Have a very good night.
Good evening. Locally, the weather was mainly cloudy with some showers. There were sunny periods and it was hot this afternoon. And as tonight's situation chart shows, Tropical Storm Rumbia was centered about 60 kilometers east of Nanning. It is forecast to move northwest at about 25 kilometers per hour across Guangxi and weaken further. Today's temperatures ranged from 27.4 to 32.9 degrees, and the relative humidity was between 65 to 83%. Moderate to fresh south to southeasterly winds. The current temperature is now 29.3 degrees Celsius, with the relative humidity standing at 80%. So Freddie, how's the weather tomorrow? There will be a few showers tonight, cloudy overnight with a minimum temperature of around 27 degrees. It will be mainly fine and hot during the day with a maximum temperature of 32 degrees in the urban areas and a couple of degrees higher in the New Territories. It will be mainly fine and hot in the next couple of days. Tomorrow's API is forecast at 15 to 65 and the pollution level will range from low to high. And the maximum UV intensity forecast for tomorrow will be about 12. And here's the latest global weather update. Sunny in Shanghai, cloudy in Taipei and Xiamen. Showers in Guangzhou and Macau and Chengdu. Sunny in Beijing, rain in Seoul, cloudy in Tokyo. Thunderstorms in Bangkok, rain in Ho Chi Minh City and Manila. Showers in Kuala Lumpur, thunderstorms in Singapore, rain in Jakarta. Thunderstorms in New Delhi, showers in Karachi, rain in Mumbai. Sunny in Cairo. Sunny in Brisbane and Sydney and Melbourne. Cloudy in Toronto. Sunny in Vancouver and San Francisco. Cloudy in London, rain in Paris, showers in Frankfurt and Zurich. And that's the weather. Have a lovely evening.